That, for me, was a head-scratcher. We're looking for someone that's got a little bit of magic. Who is England's best two centre-halves right now? When fit, Jack comes alive.
Anyone seen Gareth Southgate?
Harsh.
Hey, is it time? Southgate builds a team around Jack Grealish. Right in there with a bit of England. We saw him against Republic of Ireland, obviously, last week. And at the weekend, they took on the Belgians. They were beaten by Belgium, but I actually thought it was quite a spirited display. There was some decent positives to take away from that England performance, one of which a certain Aston Villa midfielder by the name of Jack Grealish. For a guy that was out in the cold, that wasn't really fancied by the manager, I think he's made it's an impossible place for Gareth Southgate for him not to play him. I think he has to play, especially now with the form that he's in, with the way that he's performing for England. I think he's got to be maybe the second name on the team sheet after Harry Kane. The weekend, I thought he was magnificent.
Yeah, good evening, Captain. He was outstanding, Jack Grealish. There's always a question mark about players when they step up in class and step up in a level. Can they replicate their form that they did when this goes right down from whether you're under 11, 12, 13, and it continues, whether you're in the resis as it was, or the B team, or the under 23s now, and that step up into the first team, and then the divisions and international class. Well, every single time I see Jack Grealish, he comes up with the same answer. He's incredibly brave on the ball. He wants it in tight areas. He's never ever afraid to receive. When you think it's too tight, Jack will always have the ball. And I know when you play in tight areas, certainly when you're playing out from the back, it's such a relief, it gives so much confidence to players. Give it to Jack Grealish, because he's got the ability not only to hold defenders off, but control the ball and entice a challenge. And he's very, very clever at that, and he wins a lot of free kicks, and he gets you higher up the pitch. And I'm sure you saw the little flick that he done second half, which was people are starting to compare him with GAZZA, and it's
a bit harsh. Let's just let him be Jack Grealish.
Yes, you're right. But I know what people mean by that, and they're not saying he's the same player. We're looking for someone that's got a little bit of magic, a little bit of something different, and that little flick was genius. It really was, and he moved us from midway inside our own half. That little flick took the ball, travels with the ball. He takes the ball. He's brave in possession, and I thought this all-round performance was the only thing that I felt lacked was a goal. I think he'd done pretty much everything else he could have done, and even at 2-0. And I agree with you. I don't think it was a bad performance from England at all. No. And I don't think there was too much to choose between the two sides, and other than the little finer details that we'll no doubt get into throughout the rest of the show. But I did feel, even with Jack on the pitch, even with 15 to go, I felt there was a chance we could get something.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case with England when you're 2-0 down. And in the end, look, they took their chances. We didn't. But you're right, Jack Grealish. And he has forced his way. And I'm not so sure that Gareth Southgate... I think there's been a little bit of a media, and certainly in social media, drive this, that Gareth Southgate perhaps did need a bit of convincing. And, maybe it could have happened a little bit earlier. But give Southgate some credit. He's playing him. Now, he can't do any more than that. And, he's earned his stripes. He's in there on merit. We'll see exactly what happens next time when Sterling's fit, when Rashford's fit.
Well, that's it. I think it's easy for him to play him right now because of his go-to players are not there. They're not available. I think it's an easy thing for him right now. I'm saying that this kid's got to play even when his top boys are ready to rock and roll, because he's the guy that's in form right now. I go as far as to say, and I'd love your opinion on this, Jay, because he seems hell-bent on three at the back, does Gareth Southgate, doesn't he? And the midfield setup, and then obviously the forward line. With the way that Grealish is playing, does that now force Gareth Southgate's hand in changing the formation to accommodate him and to accommodate the likes of a Sterling and a Rashford and a Harry Kane? Because imagine that as a front four. That is mouth-watering, mate.
Yes, it is, and this is part of the problem. It's all well and good people saying, play him, play Grealish, play Kane, play Rashford, play Sterling. That's all well and good, but you can only play that kind of shape or formation up top if you go to a back four.
Yes.
I don't quite.
So do we go to a back four then? Do we go to a back four?
Well, right now the problem we have, and I've said for a while, I think the reason that we're going to a back three is that I don't think he fully trusts two centre-halves enough. I don't think we have enough quality in our centre-halves to go with the two. And I had this conversation the other day. I can't remember who I had it with. It was on Friday night, saying who is England's best two centre halves right now when fit? And I'm going to throw Gomez in there. I know he's not fit right now, but who is it? Is it Maguire and Gomez? Is it Mings and Gomez? Is it Mings and Maguire? And then you've got Cody that can come into there. Dyer's playing an awful lot of football right then at the moment. The problem is, I don't think we have a natural, dominant two centre halves. And if I put John Terry and Rio Ferdinand into those positions and say who are the best two centre halves, you wouldn't hesitate to say John Terry and Rio Ferdinand. And that, I think, is a little bit of an issue for Southgate right now. Yeah,
you're 100% right. But with two holding midfielders in front of him, with a Henderson and maybe somebody else, is that enough of a reason to sacrifice leaving Jack Grealish out of the side? Because I know what's going to happen here. He's going to keep that three at the back. He's going to go with the three up top. And Jack Grealish will be a player that he uses as an impact from the bench, which I think is the wrong thing to do. I personally, having watched him recently and the way he's most certainly developed over the last 6 to 12 months playing for Aston Villa and commanding that side, leading that side, carrying it, the lad works hard. He could comfortably come back and act as a defensive part of a defensive shield with the two that you're going to play in front of the two centre halves. I personally think that this lad has to play, and he's got to play in a position that he can affect the game. We've spent years, didn't we, shoehorning Paul Scholes into a side that he was playing on the left wing, which was ridiculous. Let's find the right position for this lad and build the team around that, because when he's on fire, I thought him and Kane linked up beautifully in the game. I think we're getting the best out of Harry Kane when you've got a creative player like Jack Grealish just behind him. And the rest of the team will just have to figure it out, because not playing him, I think, is more detrimental than... Well, sorry. I think you've got to find a place to put it, to have him in the side for England to really kick on and threaten at major tournaments.
Well, he loves coming in from that left-hand side. He's so good at slowing the game. You watch how it goes slow, quick. He does it brilliantly, where he stands defenders up, and the game almost becomes pedestrian. And then there's a drop of the shoulder, just a swivel of the hips, and all of a sudden he's gone. And he's not lightning quick, Grealish. You know, he's not. He hasn't got the pace.
He's not slow, though.
No, he's not. No, he's not. But I love the way that he just wrong foots momentarily the defender, and he seems to do it every single time. You know what he's going to do. He wants to cut in on that right foot, but he's got a lovely eye for a pass as well. That ball he put in for Saka as well, where he thinks everyone's going to go for the shot. It's a little blind pass. He plays like a straight ball in behind, and where is Grealish's best position? Well, for me, anywhere in that front 3-4, in the final third, Jack comes alive. I
completely agree. And if you think about the lads that we're trying to match him up with Sterling, Rashford, they're all interchangeable as well. That's where football is right now. You don't have set positions, do you? It is interchangeable.
Yes, it has to be fluid. You're right.
Of course.
It has to be fluid.
And he most certainly can do that. He can go out wide. He can go
well, then
out
that means, Catman, that means then... You either, if you stick with a 3, you get a similar formation to what we did yesterday, 3-4-3. Okay, and Jack is on that left-hand side, and he can dominate a game out on that left-hand side. I would like to see Jack given a little bit more of a more central role, and he's allowed to drift. And you mentioned there about Sterling and Rashford. They're intelligent enough players that they can come inside, and Jack can perhaps go outside.
Yeah,
I think that they're capable of doing that, but then you have to go to a back 4.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no way around it. You can't have that amount of attacking players up top unless you go. So then it goes back to the question. Then you have to have two centre halves. Who are your two centre halves? Who do you play? I think the fullbacks is an interesting one. You've got Trent. You've got Reece James.
But we've got quality in those positions, haven't we? We've got good players in those positions.
Yes, we have. I think you could almost then be a little bit more defensive in your central two. If you don't trust your two centre halves, and if you are a little bit more cautious going forward, I think most fans would accept a slightly more defensive-minded midfield. Yep. Therefore, you could have Rice and Henderson, and I know they're both defensive-minded, but if you're playing Sterling or Jadon Sancho, Rashford, Grealish, Mount is going to go in there, Maddison you can put in there, Harry Kane up top as well. I think that out of that 4, if you've got 4 attacking players like that, I think a lot of fans would perhaps... He has become, Southgate, very, very cautious.
Yeah.
And he's lost
Southgate. That's what he is. He's Southgate.
He has gone safe, but that hasn't always been the way. when you remember after the World Cup where he played a 3, he then went to a 4, and we were destroying. I mean, we played some of the best football I think I've seen consistently under Southgate. It was exciting. We were scoring goals. We were creating chances. We would do what we did to Spain. Rashford would link up with Sterling. He would link up with Kane. It was brilliant to watch. For some reason, and I think it's because he's gone to a 3 at the back, for some reason now he has got to, if he's sticking with a 3, he's got to find a way that we can still be defensively sound, but not to the detriment of our attack. And at the moment, we're looking like we're not going to create a great deal at all.
Jay, he's playing the wrong formation. I think everybody listening to this right now knows that he is. If he goes at 4 at the back and 2 holding midfielders, and then he has that front line 3 with Harry Kane or even Calvert-Lewin, he's making a right case for himself as the top boy. Then what you've also, let's say Grealish all of a sudden loses form. You've got someone like a Foden, you've got Maddison, you've got Mount that could go in there. You've got all that is the formation. It is that 3 behind a top man. So 4 attacking players, and you're right in what you're saying. You could be more defensive with the 2 guys in midfield that would protect the 2 centre-halves. If you're playing a Trent or a Reece James as a right-back, and you're playing a Chilwell or a Saka at the left-hand side, mate, we've got that is the formation. That is it.
It feels nice, but see, if you can still play a 3 at the back and have attacking intent, you therefore can give your wing-backs a licence to go forward. Those 2 central midfielders, depending on what their skill set is, Henderson and Rice are very defensively minded. You could still have a Mount in there. So therefore you would still have that creativity from slightly deeper, which I think... I tell you what I didn't get yesterday, Catman. I love your thoughts on this. I didn't get Winks coming on.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm not saying Winks is a bad player, and I'm not suggesting 1 second he doesn't deserve to be in that squad. What I am suggesting is when you're 2-0 down and you're making a substitution, it's almost a like for like. Where I was disappointed in that, and I think Southgate has got to be very careful that he doesn't lose all the goodwill in the World Cup by making substitutions like that. That, for me, was a head-scratcher.
Welcome, mate. How are you?
All right, Rich?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm good, boys. Adam, it's not often I disagree with you, but just ticking off the one bit that you said, and we've made this mistake so many times, do we build a team around Jack Grealish? Based on what? At the moment, he doesn't look like a bad player. He looks like a good player. Yep. Right? Take nothing away from him. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about his club performances rather than being dazzled by his England performances. And so far in the past, you've asked a question on this very show, not you, but it has been asked on this show. Mm-hmm. Do we build a team around Demi Ali? Do we build a team around Jack Wilshere? Now it's do we build a team around Jack Grealish? I, as Jason would know, have always had total faith in this England squad that's coming through. And I'm going to put pressure on the manager because I expect us to be at least in the final of the Euros. And it's not about building a team around. We've got players. Raheem Sterling, as Jason's just been saying, is one of the most improved players in the world. And on his game, he is a threat constant for anyone. His movement, his pace, his thinking, his passing, and his eye for goal, alongside Kane.
Yeah.
I would play...
Rich, just on what you're saying there, because you're saying don't build a team around an individual, right? And listen, I'm with you. That's fine if that's your opinion on that. But what about building a team around a particular position? We've got a lot of lads that can play in that number 10 role that are very, very good, haven't we? Do we need to change the formation to cater for having a quality number 10 on the pitch?
Yeah, I would agree with having a quality number 10 player. And you know who I'd play him with? Don't laugh. I'd play him with Ross Barkley in that midfield, and I'd have 2 holding midfielders. You could have your 2 holding midfielders. You could have the kid Henderson, and you could have the other kid play. We could have 2 holding midfielders, and we could play, and he could play like a number 10 if he wanted. But at the end of the day, we've still got players like Jadon Sancho, who I know seems a bit off colour at the moment, but I've been watching him play for Dortmund. He is a hell of a player. And we've still got people like Rashford to come off the bench. We've got Trippier, who I still reckon is a good player. The kid that plays at Liverpool at right back, I think he's one of the best right backs in the world. We've got a really, really massive, well, not massive, we've got a good squad, good quality. All we've got to do is find the positions and find a formation that suits the team and suits the play. But we've got quality from top to bottom. but not building a team, not building around one player, because Jack Grealish isn't good enough to be built around.
No, but I think Adam makes a great point there, Rich. And okay, maybe building a team around one player isn't necessarily what. And I don't want to put words in Adam's mouth here, but when we had the meeting before, it was really about getting a position that we can dominate games, and we've got a number of number 10s. Okay, we've got players that can play in there. Jack is one of many. We haven't even mentioned Phil Foden yet. Okay, we haven't even mentioned the precocious young talent that he is. Now, I'm not building a team around one player maybe is a little risky, but if you get the best out of England's number 10, let's say Jack for the sake of this conversation because of what happened yesterday, then you're going to get the best out of Harry Kane. That's how I see that. I thought the pair of them were excellent yesterday. The two best players, Jack was head and shoulders the best player on the pitch. I thought Kane gets better and better. He's a wonderful, wonderful player. But you've got to get the best out of him. And I'm just not at the formation at the moment. When going forward, I think we look decent. I wouldn't say brilliant, but we look decent. We look capable. But there's always that worry for me defensively. And I don't think that we know really. There's a period, I don't know if you remember it, and Jamie Carragher spotted it. He said we looked a little bit lost after we were 2-0 down. We didn't really. There was a lack of movement, lack of ideas. The back three were passing amongst one another. No one really knew how to get on the ball. I know just that side of it really concerns me, and I think that we need to somehow get the balance between not just looking good, but punishing teams. And we didn't. Go on, sorry, mate. Go on.
I was just going to say, if we're gonna look, as much as it pains me to say this, but if there's one person that needs to be getting plenty of the ball, seeing plenty of the ball, and getting on the ball, is Harry Kane, and getting the service from our midfield to him. I think the offence can work itself out, and I think we've definitely got holding midfield players that can protect our back four. It's getting the service quick enough to the front two players, and if you're getting constant service to Raheem Sterling, Jack Grealish may be the bloke to do it, but so maybe Barkley, but if you're getting constant service to those front two players, we will get goals, and the defence will sort itself out.
Thinking we, Rich. Nice one, mate. Thanks for being on the show, mate. Much appreciated.